Rookwood, Chapter 1, Book 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This reading by Paul Curran. Rookwood by William Harrison Ainsworth. Book 2. The Sexton. Duchess, thou art very plain. Bosola. My trade is to flatter the dead, not the living. I am a tomb maker. Webster. Chapter 1. The Storm. Come, list and hark, the bell doth toll for some but now departing soul. And was not that some ominous fowl, the bat, the night crow, or screech owl? To these I hear the wild wolf howl, in this dark night that seems to scowl, and these my black book shall enroll. For hark, still hark, the bell doth toll, for some but new departed soul. Heywood, Rape of Lucretia. The night was wild and stormy. The day had been sultry, with a lurid, metallic-looking sky hanging like a vast galvanic plate over the face of nature. As evening drew on, everything betokened the coming tempest. Unerring indications of its approach were noted by the weather-wise at the hall. The swallow was seen to skim the surface of the pool so closely that he ruffled its placid mirror as he passed, and then, sharply darting round and round with twittering scream, he winged his rapid flight into his clay-built home beneath the barn eaves. The kine that had herded to the margin of the water, and sought, by splashing, to relieve themselves from the keen persecution of their myriad insect tormentors, wended stalwards, undriven, and deeply lowing. The deer, that at twilight had trooped thither, also for refreshment, suddenly, with expanded nostrils, snuffed the air, and bounded off to their coverts amidst the sheltering fern-brake. The rooks, obstreperous of wing, in crowds combined, cawed in a way that, as plainly as the words could have done, bespoke their apprehension, and were seen, some hovering and beating the air with flapping pinion, others shooting upwards in mid-space, as if to reconnoitre the weather, while others again were croaking to their mates in loud discordant tone from the high branches of the lime trees, all seemingly as anxious and as busy as mariners before a gale of wind. At sunset, the hazy vapours, which had obscured the horizon throughout the day, rose up in spiral volumes, like smoke from a burning forest, and, becoming gradually condensed, assumed the form of huge billowy masses, which, reflecting the sun's light, changed, as the sinking orb declined, from purple to flame colour, and then to ashy, angry grey. Night rushed onwards, like a sable steed. There was a dead calm. The stillness was undisturbed, save by an intermittent sighing wind, which, hollow as a murmur from the grave, died as it rose. At once the grey clouds turned to an inky blackness. A single, sharp, intensely vivid flash shot from the bosom of the rack, sheer downwards, and struck the earth with a report like that of a piece of ordnance. In 10 minutes it was the dunnest night, and a rattling thunderstorm. The progress of the storm was watched with infinite apprehension by the crowd of tenantry assembled in the great hall, and loud and frequent were the ejaculations uttered as each succeeding peal burst over their heads. There was, however, one amongst the assemblage who seemed to enjoy the uproar. A kindred excitement appeared to blaze in his glances as he looked upon the storm without. This was Peter Bradley. He stood close by the window, and shaded not his eyes even before the fiercest flashes. A grin of unnatural exhilaration played upon his features, and he seemed to exult in, and to court, the tempestuous horrors which affected the most hardy amongst his companions with consternation, and made all shrink trembling into the recesses of the room. Peter's conduct was not unobserved, nor his reputation for unholy dealing forgotten. To some, he was almost as much an object of dread as the storm itself. "Didst ever see the like o' that?" said Farmer Burtonshaw, one of the guests, whose round, honest face good wine had recently empurpled, but fear had now mottled white, addressing a neighbour. "Didst ever hear of any man that were a Christian laughing in the very face of a thunderstorm, with the lightning fit to put out his eyes, and the rattle above ready to break the drums of his ears? I always thought Peter Bradley was not exactly what he ought to be, and now I'm sure on it." "For my part, I think, neighbour Burtonshaw," returned the other, "that this great burst of weather's all of his raising, for in all my born days I never seed such a hurly-burly, and hope never to see the like of it again. I've heard my grandfather tell of folk as could command wind and rain. Peter may have the power. We all know he can do more nor any other man." "We know, at all events," replied Burtonshaw, "that he lives like no other man, that he spends night after night by himself in that dreary churchyard, that he keeps no living thing, except an old terrier dog, in his crazy cottage, and that he never asks a body into his house from one year's end to another. I've never crossed his threshold these 20 years. But," continued he, mysteriously, "I happened to pass the house one dark, dismal night, and there what dost think I seed through the window?" "What didst see?" "Peter Bradley, sitting with a great book open on his knees, it were a Bible, I think, and he crying like a child." "Art sure o' that?" "The tears were falling fast upon the leaves," returned Burtonshaw; "but when I knocked at the door, he hastily shut up the book, and ordered me to be gone, in a surly tone, as if he were ashamed of being caught in the fact." "I thought no tear had ever dropped from his eye," said the other. "Why, he laughed when his daughter Susan went off at the hall, and when she died, folk said he received hush money to say naught about it. That were a bad business, anyhow; and now that his grandson Luke be taken in the fact of housebreaking, he minds it no more, not he, than if nothing had happened." "Don't be too sure of that," replied Burtonshaw. "He may be scheming summat all this time. Well, I've known Peter Bradley now these 52 years, and, excepting that one night, I never saw any good about him, and never heard of nobody who could tell who he be, or where he do come from." "One thing's certain, at least," replied the other farmer. "He were never born at Rookwood. How he came here the devil only knows. Save us! What a crash! This storm be all of his raising, I tell ye." "He be what he certainly will be," interposed another speaker, in a louder tone, and with less of apprehension in his manner than his comrade, probably from his nerves being better fortified with strong liquor. "Dost thou think, Samuel Plant, as how Providence would entrust the like o' him with the command of the elements? No, it's rank blasphemy to suppose such a thing; and I've too much of the true Catholic and apostate church about me to stand by and hear that said." "Maybe, then, he gets his power from the Prince of Darkness," replied Plant. "No man else could go on as he does. Only look at him. He seems to be watching for the thunderbout." "I wish he may catch it, then," returned the other. "That's an evil wish, Simon Toft, and thou mayst repent it." "Not I," replied Toft. "It would be a good clearance to the neighborhood to get rid of the cold, croaking curmudgeon." Whether or not Peter overheard the conversation we pretend not to say, but at that moment a blaze of lightning showed him staring fiercely at the group. "As I live, he's overheard you, Simon," exclaimed Plant. "I wouldn't be in your skin for a trifle." "Nor I," added Burtonshaw. "Let him overhear me," answered Toft. "Who cares? He shall hear summat worth listening to. I'm not afraid of him or his arts, were they as black as Beelzebooth's own. And to show you I'm not, I'll go and have a crack at him on the spot." "Thou art a fool for thy pains, if thou dost, friend Toft," returned Plant. "That's all I can say." "Be advised by me, and stay here," seconded Burtonshaw, endeavoring to hold him back. but tossed